The Administrative Committee has always depended upon the voluntary gifts of churches and individuals to maintain the services that we provide. Though we provide a broad range of services assigned to us by the General Assembly, currently only 45% of our churches support us financially. The General Assembly has recently approved a new plan for AC funding. We have asked some AC supporters from across the spectrum of the PCA to share with you why they support this funding plan.
I have been on the AC these many number of years, and I've seen the devastation of a lack of funding.
The statistics are that only 45% of the churches give a penny to the Administrative Committee for funding actions required by the General Assembly. Only 16% of the churches give their full askings.
It's always been a difficulty for the raising of the money. And yet, somehow, that's the place where you finally connect yourself to the Presbyterian Church in America. That there are a lot of people who have this, and this that they like to emphasize, but the Administration Committee is the one thing that draws us all together. I mean, if we continue to just let your work kind of flounder a little bit, we're going to pay a terrible price. And so we need to try to figure out how we can get churches who are not excited about administration. And we understand that's part of the plan of most of our lives. We don't get excited about administration. But we have got to fund it somehow. And this is a reasonable plan.
Because the financial support that's needed to do the work that the denomination has asked us to do has not been supported.
We need a solid and consistent, continuous basis of support. So it is very much needed as a practical matter.
I was on staff with the Administration Committee back in the early 80s, and that was an issue every year, was how are we going to raise our budget. So I got to see that firsthand and saw the struggle with that.
It emphasizes the fact that we are connected at all these different levels and nobody operates independent of the others, but it is an interdependent system. And so I think there's always a concern in the church as a whole of how do we stay connected? And this plan actually helps us to do that.
You know, we really need a system of funding the work of the Administrative Committee, which makes it possible for us all to be connected as part of the PCA. We need to make it more predictable.
I believe the AC funding plan is a very practical way for us as a denomination to come together. As Presbyterians, we believe in connectionalism, and yet sometimes we don't actually do things in a connectional way. And I think this is a way for us to recognize how the Administrative Committee really serves the whole denomination, sometimes in ways that the regular church member or even some staff members don't realize it. But the AC is there and providing that undergirding support that we as a denomination need to come alongside.
I believe the AC funding plan has been, it is the product of years' worth of deliberation, study, close scrutiny by a broad cross-section of the church. And the reason that is behind that effort is because it is very important that we be able to be a financially stable denomination.
This is as painless a way to fund the Administrative Committee as I can think of. It is fair. One of the problems we've had, especially with attending the General Assembly, is that smaller churches find it very difficult because of the cost. And here we have a plan now where those who have ability, larger churches with larger budgets are going to carry a bigger load, and those churches which are smaller will actually have a much more reduced cost if they send even a pastor to the General Assembly.
These amendments to the Book of Church Order, specifically chapter 14, sections 1 and 2, came before us at our meeting in early May of this year. And we spent a fair amount of time looking at the proposed amendments and considering whether they would pass constitutional muster. And it was an 8-0 vote supporting the resolution that these proposed amendments are in fact consistent with other parts of the Constitutional. They are constitutional.
This AC funding program actually has nothing to do with those provisions at all, because those provisions never were taken to mean that Christ's fundamental principle had been vitiated. That is to say, the New Testament says, for example, Paul in Romans, he says, a person's wage is not a gift, but it's what it's earned through his work. The Old Testament has warned us, don't hold the wages of a worker overnight. That is, when a person's labored, he deserves to be paid. Christ's own principle for the care of his disciples was, a laborer is worthy of his hire. Now all of that sets out a principle of quid pro quo, this for that. If you do work, you deserve to be paid. And Paul applied that then to the life of the church, both in Corinthians and in the pastoral epistles.
Well, if you're a smaller church, you can now send your teaching elder and your ruling elders for dramatically less cost.
I think the AC funding plan speaks directly to our need for each other and our need to depend upon one another for cooperative ministry. So, in my estimation, all we're doing is simply being Presbyterian.
It's very difficult for the administrative committee to raise support, to have adequate funding, because people don't normally give to administration. They give to missions, they give to schools, they give to seminaries, that type thing. And and you don't have the people out there, like the church planners, they're out raising their support. The missions people, they're out raising, and that keeps us oriented towards the missions committee and so on. So you don't have the same kind of opportunities for your support raising, and it makes it really tough. And it's very important that you be funded.
I think it's helpful that all the teaching elders have to share equally in the cost of the work of uniting and connecting us, of allowing the ministry of the church to move forward in very specific, tangible ways, whether they be administrative or judicial or in the ways in which they advance the General Assembly, the courts of the church.
It's fair to everyone. It asks everyone to pay a minimal amount for the connectedness that benefits them. It also prevents a situation where a church, maybe not intentionally, but maybe just through force of habit, can kind of become a free rider and benefit from that connectedness without paying even a small share of the cost of that.
My hope is that the members of the PCA will see the great value of the administrative committee and how this funding plan is a way that they can say, not only are we PCA in name, but really we're PCA in our actions too, and we want to support what the administrative committee's doing, and we want to really show that we are a connectional church.
If we were to participate in that as churches in the denomination, it would save the administrative committee from having to create a development staff, increase bureaucracy and so forth. It would fund this skeleton crew that we already have who are able to work on a shoestring budget.
Just have come to really appreciate the work of the administrative committee and what it does for the denomination and how it makes so much of the ministry possible. Without the administrative committee, it's sort of the glue in some senses that holds it all together and provides the infrastructure that allows the ministries of the PCA to actually happen.
I'm grateful for the administrative committee because it really fosters the connectedness of our denomination. The administrative committee is sort of the motor oil that makes sure that we run smoothly as an organization.
The proposals before the church now are not perfect. No legislative drafting is perfect. You have your best shot at trying to accomplish what you think needs to be accomplished, but then you learn through practical experience how well adapted it is to work, and you make changes based on that experience.
There is a misalignment of authority as churches and ruling elders and teaching elders go and vote in the General Assembly and pass overtures, and the responsibility of carrying out so many of the actions that are passed within the General Assembly falls to the administrative committee. And yet, the churches themselves don't fund their actions taking place at the General Assembly.
We really didn't have any thought about administration when we thought about forming a new denomination. It was sort of on the back burner and the heat wasn't turned up very high there. And when we started the denomination, we had the idealistic view that people were going to just give the way we needed them to give. They were going to give half to foreign missions and 25% to home missions and 15% to Christian education and 10% to administration. And we just assumed that because we asked them to do that, that they were going to do it and do it gladly. But then, of course, to be honest with you, when missionaries started going around through the churches, more and more money started following them. And then the church planters needed money. And as Jim has said, the more and more money followed them. And people still have not really gotten excited about supporting administration. So if we don't do something, as my brothers have said, if we don't do something, we're going to be in bad shape soon, because you are the glue that holds us together.
For more information about the new AC funding plan and answers to frequently asked questions, visit us at our website, pcaac.org. Please pray for us and support us as you're able.